The big thing that's happened in the United States in the last few months, certainly, it's the fact that Kamala didn't win the election. If the Democrats had won, they would further have cemented themselves into office, and we'd just be in for a world of trouble. Now, that's not to say I really support Donald Trump. I've got a lot of issues with his policies, but from every point of view, he's vastly better than the Jacobins that run the Democrat Party. Now, how the Democrats are going to react to what he tries to do and fight against them, sure, we're going to see lots of lawsuits, lots of slow rolling, probably some riots, maybe some more things like what just happened in Las Vegas and New Orleans. Who knows? We don't get good information on that. Certainly nothing that comes out of the government is reliable. So in any event, big picture, it's a good thing that Trump is in office. And that gives me a certain sense of optimism. It's morning in America. That's the good news. But the bad news is that morning only lasts 6 hours. He wants to roll back DEI, which is a completely stupid, evil, and vicious program, diversity, equity, and inclusion. He wants to roll back ESG, same type of thing. It's a leftist meme. These are good things, so I'll take what I can get. But I think that the trend, which has been established for some years, is that Western civilization is sliding downhill. The United States has peaked as a power. Actually, it's turned into a global multicultural empire, and it's heading downhill too. So I see the Trump administration as, at best, throwing some sand on the slippery slope because Trump will continue spending. He's a big debt guy. He's always said that. That's his modus operandi. He's a big spender. That's all bad news. But the good news is that he'll try to deregulate and perhaps succeed with the help of Elon and the Vivek. So on the whole, things look better now than they did a few months ago. Inflation is going to go much higher. And the reason for that is the government runs, let's say, a $2 trillion per year deficit. And the American people aren't buying the debt. The Chinese aren't buying the debt. Who's buying that $2 trillion that the government needs to finance every year? It's the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve buys it by printing up more dollars and depositing those dollars in commercial bank accounts of the U.S. government, where it spends it on what it wants in the society. Now, that's funny money. That's super money. It's created out of nothing. So, yes, inflation is going higher. And with the world head over heels in debt, well, it's not just the U.S. government, almost $37 trillion, but corporate debt, individual debt, automobile debt, student loans to mortgage debt, credit card debt. If that debt is not financed, we'll have a credit collapse, similar to what happened in 1929. So they want to keep that from happening above all. So the answer to the question is no question about it. Inflation is going higher. The only thing that's going to keep it down is, to some degree, there's going to be deregulation going on under Trump. And that will tamp down inflation because there'll be more production as a result. Yeah, you've got to bet on inflation and you've got to invest expecting inflation. I think 2025 is going to be a very turbulent year. What we just saw happen in Syria, where the old government was overthrown and ceased to exist. And Syria is no longer one country. It's probably 3 or 4 countries. So it's going to be chaos in the Middle East. People have forgotten that Libya, for instance, this is never mentioned in the news, is no longer one country. It's really 3 countries. Same thing with Syria now. And the same might easily happen in a number of countries in Africa and other places in the world. The only thing I hope for is that the U.S. government doesn't stick its nose into those tar babies, those hornets' nests in the future, but it probably will, because the U.S. has a giant military. Trump likes the giant military. He's going to wind up using it in some stupid place. And even though he says he doesn't want to get involved in another war, and I believe him, he will, because of the kind of people that wind up in Washington and surround him. And so it's going to be an exciting year, not to mention the turbulence that we're undoubtedly going to see here in the U.S. And the war in the Ukraine is not over yet. And who knows where the next Ukraine or Gaza lookalike will pop up. Could be in a number of places. Well, the chances of it ending here are much, much better than with the Bidenistas in office, because these stupid Bidenistas wouldn't even talk to the Russians. And when you're talking about 2 countries with nuclear weapons, not having a red phone that you can use to talk things over and make sure you understand each other, it's criminally insane. So the good thing about Trump is he'll talk to Putin, and it's possible for a compromise to be arrived at. And hopefully that slimy little criminal that's running the Ukraine right now, so far, what we know is he's stolen about $500 million personally. Maybe it's more like $1 billion at this point. Who knows? He'll be out of office. That's important and necessary. He's turned the Ukraine into a police state. In the course of fighting this war, that's unnecessarily, stupidly killed, and nobody knows what the numbers are, but probably killed 500,000 Ukrainian young men. So yeah, I think it's going to come to an end. This is another good thing about Kamala not having been elected. Commodity cycle right now for metals, or frankly, all commodities. There are some exceptions. Some commodities have run up a lot, like cocoa and coffee, for instance, have run up a lot. But the grains are very cheap. But there really aren't any royalty companies for those things. Let's talk about the royalty companies. And the royalty companies are metals. The problem with royalty companies is there used to be just one, Franco-Nevada. It was exceptionally successful. But seeing the success of royalties, giving companies that don't have money in order to develop their properties, and then collecting a royalty on the deposit on the mine for forever, usually. There have been a lot of Me Too companies that have come up. I don't know how many royalty companies there are now. 24, I'm guessing. So that's the problem with royalty companies, is there are more royalty companies out there offering money to companies. The terms that they're able to get aren't as good as they used to be. So I'm a big holder of a royalty company that I was the founder of called Metalla. I bought it. I still own it. I'll continue to own it. But let's say there's a mania that develops in gold and gold stocks. Yeah, of course I'll sell it. Absolutely. Because these things fluctuate radically. These little mining stocks fluctuate extremely radically, more than any other kind of stock, more than biotech stocks, more than computer stocks. They haven't gone anywhere for several years. They've been bouncing along the bottom. But when they run, as a group, they generally run 10 to 1. This has happened 5 times in the last 50 years. And it's not a number I just picked out of the air. And when it does happen again, yeah, I'm going to sell almost all of them. And hopefully, productive industrial companies in the U.S. will have gone down a lot, and I'll be able to sell these crappy little mining companies for a big buck and buy solid companies that yield high dividends cheaply. So that's my plan. Answer to the question, absolutely you want to sell them. Most of the bottom. Don't think about selling now. Look, I always say, think about selling when a golden bear is on the front cover of Newspeak or Slime, should they still exist, tearing apart the New York Stock Exchange. That's the key. That's when you know that it's time to sell gold and buy New York Stock Exchange stocks. So hold your royalty companies kind of until that happens. Stocks traded in Vancouver are almost all resource stocks. We're talking gold, silver, copper, nickel, oil, gas, this type of thing. And it's bouncing around 600 on that index. And it's been there basically for years. Is this the magic year? Well, I'd like to believe it is, but I could be wrong, because I've been wrong for the last several years. It's just going nowhere. I mainly speculate in them by buying private placements from the companies. By doing so, I can get a good-sized position without moving the market, because they're generally thinly traded. I can usually get them at a discount to the market, and most important, I can always get a warrant to buy more stocks over the next 2 years, 3 years, sometimes 5 years. So that's how I speculate in them. That's how I've kept my head above water. But is this going to be the year? Well, I'd like to think so. I'm betting that way. We'll see if I'm right, but nobody knows. You can kind of forget about historical ratios between the metals because platinum is a high technology metal. Same with palladium, which is easily substitutable in many cases for platinum. It depends on what the uses is, whether there's a new use developed or an old use goes away. Like, for instance, catalytic converters in cars. Maybe if governments have anything to say about it, there won't be any more internal combustion engines in 10 years. Well, that's not going to happen. But still, there's all kinds of things that influence the ratios between these metals. And it's true, historically, gold has been roughly the same price as platinum. Now, platinum's about a third the price of gold or something on that order. Look, it's a question of what's the mining situation like in Russia and in South Africa, because those are the two countries that produce almost all of the palladium and platinum in the world. So that's one bet you're making. Will there be less production in either of those two countries? Yeah, pretty good bet. That's bullish for platinum. I don't have any particular opinion on platinum. It is relatively cheap right now, so is palladium. For many years, the U.S. government fixed the price of silver to gold. I think it was 17-1. And everybody was saying, well, there's a historic relationship between gold and silver. No, that changed radically. Now it's like 85-1. So don't rely on these ratios between metals. It's a long-term proposition. The three novels, which are available on Amazon, are Speculator, Drug Lord, and Assassin. There's supposed to be four more, as our hero, Charles Knight, goes through more and more radical occupations and justifies their existence and says, a speculator is not a bad guy, a drug lord doesn't have to be a bad guy, an assassin doesn't have to be a bad guy. They're radical novels, but well-written, fun to read, exciting. Yeah, read the novels.